actually what we're hearing from almost every single one of our employers, one of our chamber members, is that recruiting and retaining good people is become a real issue. And so it's thinking, I always say we're living in a world right now where it's no longer what the employee can do for you, it's what you can do for the employee. And I know when you are a business owner, that's a really tough thing to think, right? To swallow, because it really should not be that way around. But it's the reality that we have now. So people starting to think about what is it that I'm offering so I can get good people here and I can keep them happy. So, without putting a major plug out for the chamber, because that's not why I'm here today, is the chamber membership has benefits to employees as well. I just had a conversation with an employer who has a younger team. Well, the Young Professionals Network is a perfect place to send your young professionals, instead of spending a lot of money on staff development, encourage them to start attending these young professional networks and these lunch and learns that we're.
Hello and welcome to Impact and Influence. Today, I am excited to have my guest and somebody that I've come to know quite well over the last year, Carrie McEachran. She is the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce in Sarnia-Lambton, and she is a small business owner. And I'm so excited to bring her on because Carrie is such a magnet of energy that is doing all kinds of great things for our community, for small businesses. And so today we're going to talk a lot about communication within your small business, promotion of your small business, and any other insights that Carrie's got that she's bringing with the chamber to help businesses be successful in Sarnia-Lambton. So welcome, Carrie. It is so great to have you today.
Thanks, Nancy, for inviting me to join you today. I'm really, really excited to be here.
I am too. So, Carrie, you stepped up into the role of the CEO at the Chamber of Commerce in May of this year. Right. And we've now come out of COVID, right? So you're starting to see a lot of new changes, people promoting, and new activities. Can you just share some of your insight into being in the CEO in a new position and what you feel corporate companies should do to help move themselves forward in this new post-COVID world?
Sure, yeah. So a little bit about me, because this job with the Sarnia-Lambton Chamber of Commerce is completely different than what I have ever done in my entire career. I come from a social service background. So I had an executive director at a social service organization for the past 6 years, held some leadership positions at different organizations prior to that. So this opportunity came up and I thought, it's going to be a lot different than what I'm used to, but I love a challenge and I love trying new things. But then when I started, I realized it actually isn't a whole lot different. It has its differences, I guess, but a big part of my role here is really just advocating for businesses, whereas before I was advocating for social services and the organizations I worked for and the people that we were serving. But now the chamber we serve business. So not a whole lot different. So a big part of my role is the advocacy piece with the chamber. Mm-hmm.
So where do you find is necessary from advocacy? Is it locally or is it even promoting outside with governments and different organizations?
It's at every level, level. So a big piece of what I wanted to do when I started here at the chamber is just spend the first 6 months just hitting the ground and going out and meeting with the membership. Because like you said, Nancy, we're just getting out of COVID. So the face of business has changed, even over the past 2 years, with everything that businesses have had to go through. So, it's really just advocating at all levels. And what members have been telling me is they'd like to see more advocacy, especially right now, coming out of COVID, having to rebuild. A lot of businesses are having to rebuild, they're rebranding, changing direction, and there's a lot of advocacy around all of this newness. So we're hitting up every level of government.
That's really interesting, right? As where every company is kind of pivoting, right? And we're rebranding, reshifting. How we deal with employees is different now coming out of COVID, right? So much has changed in the business world. One of the things that I love that you have done since you started is actually bringing kind of committees together to inspire connection and networking again. By the women in business, right? The business after 5 has ran kind of in a different way during COVID and started to become live in person again. And the young professionals group. What is if you could give somebody a recommendation about how to show up and utilize those networking events to somebody's benefit, what are some of the ideas that you have?
So we have rebuilt. We've taken some really great things that were working pre-COVID, and we've rebuilt them to really fit the needs of the new business. And so anything that we've brought back or anything we've created that's new has come from our members telling us what they need. So COVID has started lifting, people started getting out more, and they just wanted to start networking and being around other people. So Business After 5 didn't necessarily stop during COVID. They just hit the virtual world, and I don't know about you, but I was virtualed out
Yes.
with all the virtual meetings, and like my whole world was online. And so it's just not the same as that human connection that you get meeting in person. So we've looked at different ways to start engaging people, start engaging younger businesses, because we do in this community have some pretty amazing young people that are either starting businesses or they're moving their way up the ladder at their employers, and they wanted an opportunity to get out there and start started networking as well. So we have the Women in Business Network. It was something that hasn't happened at the Chamber before now, but we have a lot of women entrepreneurs that have said, hey, maybe Business After 5 is not my thing, or, I want to be around other women in business, some younger women who are just wanting that mentorship piece from some of the women who, the more seasoned people like myself, having that mentorship and that connection with people. So that has been really well received, the Women in Business. And I always say to people, it's not, you don't have to be a woman or someone who identifies as a woman to be part of this. If you are a man who believes in and empowers women in the business world, then absolutely, you are more than welcome to come. It's not just exclusive to women.
Yeah.
I get on my rant, so
rant away.
So I can't remember where I was going with that, but anyway.
Yeah, it's nice, right, to be able to get out and connect with people face to face, to kind of chat both about business and just even life in general, right? Like what's going on, and getting to know people on a one-on-one behavior, interaction and behavior style, which is absolutely lovely. I am definitely loving them. I have not historically been to them, and I've historically found networking uncomfortable, but these events have been fantastic, and I've very much enjoyed them, and encourage people to show up regardless of whether you're a member of the chamber or not, right? You don't have to be a member to come to these events. I know Carrie would love you to be a member, to join, but you don't have to be a member, right? If you want to kind of get to know people
Yes.
in the Sarnia-Lambton community. It's interesting, Carrie. You have gone through an incredible experience, and as we were talking about women in business, this idea popped into my head of, as people want to step up into CEO type positions, senior leader positions, what are some of the recommendations or skills that you would suggest that they should have to help them move up and be able to be that strong advocate for their employees and their company?
Mm-hmm. The two top things I always say to people, and I'm not just saying this because of my role here at the Chamber, is I always say to people, get a mentor, and not just one. And I've had this discussion just the other day with somebody where, people are always more than happy. I have never not known anyone to say, no, I'm not interested in being a mentor for you. In my career, moving my way up the ladder, I would reach out to women who I looked up to, and men. I had male mentors as well, and reached out and said, hey, I'd love to learn from you. And there's not one person that has said no. In fact, they're thrilled to help out. So I always say, get that person. If there's somebody in a role that you aspire to be in, that is out there doing a really great job, reach out to them. I always recommend that. Another is network. And I'm not just saying that because I'm with the Chamber, but putting yourself out there, even like you had said, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes networking is uncomfortable. And I often feel the same way, walking into a big room full of people I may not know. But put yourself out there, and start networking and learning from other people is definitely the two top things that I always recommend doing. Because there's a lot of people that'll be more than willing to give you lots of advice and mentorship as you move up the ladder.
I think that's wonderful, that concept of networking, right? Because as you move into those senior leadership roles, yes, you need to give advice down to the team, but your job is actually strategic, and moving outward and connecting to a broader audience, connecting to potential clients, connecting to potential customers, other people who are competitors or you can build alliances with. And so networking is one of those really crucial skills as you move up in a leadership role.
Yes.
And so as you have learned and developed a network, and as you're learning to connect with new people in different chambers, in different organizations, from even an advocacy perspective, what is one of the techniques that you use to meet somebody for the first time? So you're going to go say hello and introduce yourself.
So if you have the luxury of being able to find out who's going to be there in advance, I always will look at the list. Who's going to be there? Who could possibly be there? 4 months into my role here at the Chamber, I was in Ottawa at the Canadian AGM and convention, and I didn't know anyone when I walked in that room of hundreds of CEOs from across Canada. But I made a point before I went of looking at who the CEOs across Canada are, who I want to get to know, who's either doing similar things as we're doing here in Sarnia, or doing things that I'd love to implement, things that are successful where they are. So if you have the luxury of knowing, certainly do that research and find that person. The radar goes off in the room. Okay, where is that person I wanted to meet? As well as, networking is a very awkward. So, no one wants to be standing around looking uncomfortable. So, for me, I recently walked into a reception where there was hundreds of people I didn't know, and I got to the door and took a deep breath and went, okay, we're doing this. And, you look for those people that are also on their own, because there are lots of people there.
Right.
and find that other person and introduce yourself to them and, get chatting. And then the more you get chatting with them, then you're more comfortable. Or you have other people joining you. So it's just making your way around the room. I often will look at somebody and think, okay, that's somebody I feel like I really do need to go and reach out. I may not know anything about them, but there's just something about them that says you need to go and connect with that person. So,
yeah. Yeah. Something potentially about their energy or their body language that says, I feel like I'm going to resonate well with them.
And setting goals. I will set goals for myself. If it's something that I know I'm walking in and there's going to be hundreds of people there and I know I'm not going to make my way around the room, I will set a goal. I want to, by the end of the night, have, 40 contacts for new contacts for people that are working within my world or will be able to help me in whatever aspect.
Wonderful. Those are great tips for people to network, and even anybody who's local coming to our networking events, right? To be able to go out and connect and even if it's like, I know one person, can that person introduce me to someone else to make those connections? So those are fabulous recommendations.
And with the networking committee, with the Business After 5 and the young professionals, even the women in business, we will, if somebody's new to the chamber, we will actually make a point of making sure we go over and speak to them as chamber staff. But I will also, if there's somebody like you there who has got to know the chamber and you are more than willing to go over and introduce yourself to them, then I will do that. I will go and find a member to say, hey, let me introduce you to this new person, this new chamber member, and then build the connections that way as well.
As you look forward with the chamber and us moving into 2023, what do you think some of the biggest challenges for 2023 for businesses are that business owners may want to consider or be aware of?
I think, still rebuilding from what we've gone through over the past 2 years. Inflation right now is such a huge issue, and it seems to be getting worse. So, there's that piece over the next year to think about. As well, what we're hearing from almost every single one of our employers, one of our chamber members, is that recruiting and retaining good people is become a real issue. And so it's thinking, I always say, we're living in a world right now where it's no longer what the employee can do for you, it's what you can do for the employee. And I know when you are a business owner, that's a really tough thing to think, right? To swallow, because it really should not be that way around. But it's the reality that we have now. So people starting to think about, what is it that I'm offering so I can get good people here and I can keep them happy. Without putting a major plug out for the chamber, because that's not why I'm here today, is the chamber membership has benefits to employees as well. I just had a conversation with an employer who has a younger team. Well, the Young Professionals Network is a perfect place to send your young professionals, instead of spending a lot of money on staff development, encourage them to start attending these young professional networks and these lunch and learns that we're providing.
Give them that little bit of space to have time off to go do it, right? Encourage them, support them in connecting, in networking. I find, and I don't know if you have found this with even as an employee, right? It's not necessarily always the pay, but it's recognizing my growth in different ways, right? And being able to say, you know what, hey, there's a conference over here that would be really worthwhile. Why don't you go learn something and we'll develop some plan around it? Or even just suggesting ways to show appreciation on a regular basis to those employees to say, hey, I see you, you're doing a good job, and we miss, I think, those opportunities instead of being like, oh, I need to come up with another increase in salary, or I need to come up with another something for them, right? That we think are benefits, but really people are looking, does my boss appreciate why I'm there? Does my are they interested in my growth and development within this company so that I can perform better?
Absolutely.
What other things are you also seeing that would help?
That would help with the retention piece.
Yeah, the retention.
I think too, coming from like 20 some years in social services and nonprofit world, is a lot of it is building culture as well. And you speak to younger people now, because I am not even close to being that person anymore. What is it you're looking for? And it's not about the money anymore. It really isn't. Sometimes it's about the money, but building culture as well. What's it like to be in your workplace? Are people happy to be in the same space as each other? Are you doing, doing, I don't know, like fun things, right? So, culture is another big one as well.
Yeah. Working on culture, developing that culture. What is it that you want your employees? I will say to leaders, when your employee is at home having dinner with their friends, what is the message you want them to say about working at your organization? Right? What is it that it's like other people around the table will be like, hey, I want to go work there. I want to work for that boss. Right? And it's not about pay, but it's about creating that space for your employees to perform at the top of their game.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a true believer with, when you bring good people on and you help develop them and help them grow, the best thing that could ever happen is that they move on to something, and this is me working in the nonprofit world, but to move on to something bigger and better and more pay. And, they just keep building their way up the ladder. That's, you've done a great job when that happens.
True. And the other thing that, and I don't know who said this, but they're like, if you can inspire someone to develop, go off and learn somewhere else, and then come back and work for you in a senior position. Not only have you built them up, but they bring like this immense knowledge, and that combination can be really effective for your team and your organization.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. It's incredible.
So yes, and we recently, being new to the chamber, and we have a very small but mighty team here. There's 4 of us, and out of the 4 of us, only one has been here longer than a year. So we're a very small team, very new. But it was really important for me when I started for all of us to just work together and know each other, so we know each other well enough so we can work together successfully, because my goal was to build the chamber up again. And in order to do that, we all have to work very, very cohesively. And I needed to know what my staff needed, my new people, my new team. So we did bring, and it's a little plug for Nancy, but we did, we did the positive communication model program. And we were just talking about that earlier in our team meeting, actually, how it really helped us really come together as a team, not knowing each other when I started here. So it's been great. It's been a really great. Not only did we learn a whole lot about each other and what we each need to be successful, but having that time in a fun environment to get to know each other and just, let loose. And it was, I think it's probably the best thing we could have done for the team. So that's just a little
thank you.
Because I appreciate it as the leader of the organization, and I know the staff here do as well.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate you guys. It was so much fun to do this with your team. And yeah, I really love how that model, I feel, breaks down barriers of us feeling that we're different from each other, or why sometimes communication doesn't work across, right? It without putting blame or feeling guilty in that process, right? At fault, it helps kind of do it from a positive perspective. So I greatly appreciate it. Carrie, do you have any other last comments or ideas you want to share with somebody out there around leadership or communication before we sign off?
I don't think so. I mean, I could ramble on for hours, and I know that you have a time frame, so I should probably end right now. So I appreciate that we were able to have this conversation.
I am so grateful to have you here on Impact and Influence. And if anybody is interested in joining me on this show, being part, having an incredible conversation, you don't have to do a lovely plug like Carrie did, but just chat about leadership, about communication, about creating a positive workplace culture, please click the link below, and I would love to have you participate on this conversation. Thank you, Carrie, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Nancy.